Okay guys, so imagine that you're walking around in Ikea and you don't even realize that the store closes, and then you get trapped there for the night. Except instead of getting trapped inside of an Ikea, you're actually trapped inside of an SCP. And instead of getting trapped for just the night, you're actually trapped there for the rest of your life. Well guys, this is exactly what happens to those that get trapped in SCP-3008.
His clothes were ragged, he was filthy.
My guy does not look good.
Man with a full beard and long unkempt hair. His body was covered in scars, but
what happened to my guy?
What made Martin's sudden appearance so remarkable? He'd been missing for 3 years.
Whoa!
When he was interviewed by police, they asked him where he'd been all this time. They couldn't believe his answer. He'd been trapped in an Ikea since 2008.
I feel like they just wouldn't believe that.
Ikea. This was a dangerous anomaly that would come to be known as SCP-3008.
I've heard a lot about this SCP.
His interview were laughed off by his interviewing officers, who assumed he was either crazy or under the influence of something.
I mean, yeah, who would believe that?
The attention of an SCP Foundation field agent embedded in the precinct. The report was passed up the chain to a local site director, who approved a detachment of Foundation field operatives to look into Martin's case. While he was reluctant to lead the Foundation agents back to the offending Ikea, the Foundation can be extremely persuasive. His screams of, "Please, I'm begging you, don't take me back, don't make me go back."
So they basically forced him there against his will to go back to the place where he got assaulted.
Had triangulated the position of SCP-3008, which was indeed an active Ikea. The entire retail zone was closed and barricaded under the pretense of a severe black mold infestation. Armed Foundation personnel also arrived on the site shortly after, based on Martin's vague statements that there were creatures of some kind inside.
So pretty much this looks like an Ikea from the outside. I wonder how it looks on the inside.
Due to his deteriorating mental health, Martin was unable to provide a great deal of lucid information on the specific traits of SCP-3008. But one phrase he kept repeating was, "bigger on the inside." Once researchers were satisfied that Martin had delivered all the pertinent information.
Okay, I've been inside an Ikea before, and like it does look bigger on the inside. It's like a massive warehouse that they set up, these little tiny rooms everywhere, and then you kind of just get lost in there. So I mean, I could understand how some people could get trapped in there for a few hours, maybe a few days, maybe a few years if you really like the meatballs.
He was administered Foundation amnestics to erase his memory of the last 3 years.
That's probably for the best bet. Yeah, so that he's not like traumatized for the rest of his life.
And abused for 3 years by a mentally unbalanced stalker in downtown Carson. He'd been able to escape as said stalker took his own life out of guilt, a suicide that the Foundation expertly fabricated to make their cover story airtight. With the loose end of Martin Sims taken care of, the true observation of SCP-3008 could begin.
The SCP Foundation does not play around.
The mysterious Ikea kept a 24-hour watch on the building, covering all potential entrances and exits. No exploratory missions had yet been approved by the Foundation Ethics Committee, so they first wanted to perform a week of external observation to see if any of the store's anomalous properties extended beyond the confines of the
Okay guys, I want you to comment down below what you would do if you were the SCP Foundation. Like, how would you kind of like, contain this situation? Personally, I would do what they did so far. I would secure the perimeter, not really go inside yet. But what I'm thinking is we could get something similar to like the Mars rover, for instance, or just like any sort of robot that has a camera, and then you just send that inside. That way you don't have to waste any D-class personnel.
Building. After a week of nothing, it appeared they did not. A local site director approved of the use of 20 disposable Class D personnel.
Of course, they go. I swear, the SCP Foundation loves using D-class personnel when they could just use robots.
Of SCP-3008. The D-class operatives would be split into 4 squads of 5 men: Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and Delta Squad. Each would be assigned a different quadrant of the store and would deliver information back to the control team on site via a live audio and video link.
Okay.
4 teams upon entering the store.
But you could use robots.
Nothing out of the ordinary. Neither the audio or video they were sending back indicated anything different from a standard Ikea store, from the flat pack wardrobes to the Swedish meatballs. Team Delta, however,
that is insane.
Experiencing a scrambled audio and video connection. Shortly after, communication with Team Delta dropped off entirely. They disappeared somewhere inside the store and haven't been seen since.
Okay, I'm sure you guys remember the first guy that came out of the Ikea. Somehow he escaped, and all over his body he had like marks and scratches. So there's clearly something inside that can do some serious damage. We just don't know what it is yet.
With one notable exception. After the disappearance and the extraction of teams, Foundation researchers classified SCP-3008 as Euclid because its anomalous properties were at least confined to the interior of the store. store.
Exactly.
And even then, seemingly not the entire interior. The anomalous area within SCP-3008 became known as SCP-3008-1, and containment appeared to be 100% secure. There was no telling how many people had already gone missing in the store over the years, but the disappearances must be stopped. The Foundation maintained constant surveillance around the perimeter of SCP-3008, but
that is kind of pretty crazy to think about. There's probably so many people that have, just told their friends and family, like, hey, I need a new plant. I'm gonna go to Ikea. Maybe I'll get some lunch and like get some meatballs and stuff. And then they just disappeared forever. When in reality, they went to an SCP Ikea and got trapped there forever.
It appeared they could prevent any further incidents by simply preventing other civilians from accessing the Ikea store. Martin's ravings about monsters were assumed to just be the product of delirium, until a surviving member of Delta Team suddenly reappeared. The date was November 3rd,
Oh, he actually came back.
Cold night, a few hours after what would have been closing time if the store were still active, and 7 months after the extraction teams had disappeared somewhere in the confines of SCP-3008. There had been no anomalous activity outside the store since the perimeter was first secured, and the Foundation researchers hadn't expected that to change until the last surviving member of Delta Team came barging out of the store's entrance.
He actually made it out?
Field operatives were amazed to see him again, but they were even more amazed to see what was following him out of the store.
Oh my God,
the same
it's
phrase,
a Swedish man.
Now closed, please exit the building. Despite the fact that the entity chasing the Delta Team survivor was wearing the yellow shirt and blue pants of an Ikea store employee, the being
Where is his face?
was not human. It was around 7 feet tall with no visible face. The entity had grossly extended limbs, with each arm being around 5 or 6 feet long and ending in a huge oversized hand.
Okay guys, so it kind of reminds me a little bit of like the size and shape of the Shy Guy SCP. Like it kind of looks like a human, but not really. It's like super tall and skinny, and it has really long limbs, and more importantly, it can do some serious damage.
The whole process was so sudden that the field agents present at the perimeter weren't able to save the Delta Team survivor.
Oh my God, he died?
Reached forward with his freakishly long arms, grabbed him, and twisted his head off like a child's doll. The field operatives present drew their weapons and peppered the entity with bullets. It would later be classified as SCP-3008-2. The being appeared to collapse and die from the physical trauma.
Oh, okay, so it's not as strong as Shy Guy.
The body of the former Delta Team survivor were taken for an autopsy by Foundation researchers. There were no biological abnormalities of the body of the Delta Team survivor, so it did not appear that the anomalous properties of SCP-3008-1 had any effect on the physiology of its occupants.
Okay, so basically what they're saying is that the 20 D-class personnel that they sent in there and everybody else that's been inside of this Ikea has just been like living in there. Like you can eat the food, you can use the furniture, like it's only SCP 3008-2 that are actually going to hurt you, which is honestly kind of crazy. Like they're just living inside an Ikea. Which, honestly, like, that doesn't sound too bad.
He was not malnourished despite being missing for months, and the contents of his stomach looked to be half-digested food consistent with the menu of a typical IKEA store restaurant.
That is so funny.
SCP-3008-2, on the other hand, raised a number of perplexing biological questions. The autopsy revealed that the creature's clothes were actually part of its body, like an additional layer of skin. The creature lacked blood or any kind of vascular system. Even stranger, the entity didn't appear to have bones or internal organs, not even a brain or nervous system.
Is it?
It was a being made entirely of skin all the way to its core. How it was able to move, or even live for that matter, remains a mystery. Though when you work for the SCP Foundation,
these SCPs creep me out.
Things will always remain unexplained. One thing was certain though, Martin Sims was right about his monsters. After the incident with Delta Team, the Foundation deemed that sending manned explorations into the heart of SCP-3008 was too much of a liability, and planned a series of drone-based reconnaissance missions into the anomaly. The first of these drones experienced connection issues and failed when attempting to venture into the Ikea's anomalous zone. However, after a lengthy period of trial and error, the Foundation was able to establish a more secure connection with its drones, even when deep into the SCP-3008-1 anomalous zone. It was only then that some of the most extraordinary discoveries were made. SCP-3008-1 seemed to break the laws of spatial reality, as the area of the Ikea's interior was at least an order of magnitude larger.
So the guy Martin at the start of today's video was right when he said that it's bigger on the inside than it actually looks on the outside. So like it's I wonder if it's infinite on the inside.
Larger than its exterior. Just as Martin Sims had said, it was bigger on the inside, but just how much bigger? The Foundation has yet to find evidence of any physical terminators within the store that might indicate SCP-3008-1 has an end point.
So it is infinite.
10 kilometers squared has been uncovered in SCP-3008-1.
10 kilometers?
It could, in theory, be infinite. Laser rangefinder tests,
Holy
which are normally
smokes.
very reliable, have only given inconclusive results. Interestingly, the anomalous area doesn't have any clear visual differences from the rest of the Ikea store, except that it extends forever. An individual trapped within the confines of SCP-3008-1 wouldn't even realize they've entered an anomalous zone until they tried to locate an exit and leave, at which point they'd find they were already hopelessly lost. The geography of SCP-3008-1 does at least appear to be consistent, so people trapped within are theoretically able to retrace their steps and escape if they haven't already ventured too deep.
See guys, I don't know. This is one of those SCPs that like, it feels like it could exist a little bit, since I'm sure you guys have been in an Ikea or a store very similar where like it's just so massive that you feel like you're lost sometimes. Like you could just get confused by all of the different like hallways and different places that you can go down and all of the things to look at, and the restaurant with the Swedish meatballs, they're pretty distracting. So I could see how like something like this, I don't know, could be very believable, even though obviously like there's no such thing as an infinite Ikea. That just can't be possible. However, I could see something like the world's biggest Ikea, people could get trapped in there for days without anybody knowing. It could happen.
According to data collected during the drone reconnaissance missions, SCP-3008-2, of which there appear to be a vast population, would wander the stores aimlessly during the day. They are unresponsive to the drone's presence and did not appear to be aggressive.
So they're pretty much just zombies.
Of these creatures could vary slightly, they all follow the same overall trend. Clothes consistent with an Ikea uniform, no face, either seemingly too tall or too short, and limbs that are grossly out of proportion with their bodies. As the Foundation began sending drones deeper into SCP-3008-1, they found another incredible discovery. There was an unknown population of humans trapped inside Ikea's anomalous zone. And
so it's the people that have been trapped in there, the people that have, been missing for years and years and years, they have their own little civilization inside of this SCP. I don't think I've ever seen an SCP like that before.
These people had used the Ikea furniture around them to create entire settlements and towns within the store. There were several of these towns.
Okay, this would actually be a really cool TV show.
Even Foundation personnel found this development in their research to be truly extraordinary. Since SCP-3008 was first identified, there have been only 14 civilian escapes. Some had been trapped inside for months, others had been in there for years, some far longer than Martin's 3-year stint. While every one of these escapees has eventually been released back to their home, after a liberal application of amnestics and a proper cover story has been devised, the Foundation interviewed each of them extensively first. According to each of these escapees, the people trapped inside the Ikea have built an entirely new society across the various settlements. Contrary to the Lord of the Flies expectations of a group of people isolated and afraid, there's immense cooperation between the trapped civilians.
I am kind of curious though, why have only a few people escaped? Considering like it seems like some of these people that did escape, they were in the civilization, so eventually they decided to leave. I wonder if like, most of the people there, maybe they're just happy. Maybe they like have a system down, they get free food, they get, a really cool place to live. They probably built up like giant walls using couches and other furniture to keep out like the really bad zombie SCPs. So I feel like some of them might actually like it there and don't want to escape. I can't be sure, but I could see that happening.
The food in the several Ikea restaurants in SCP-3008-1 mysteriously replenishes while nobody's there, so there's no threat of starving. And the automatic turning on and off of the lights forms as a rudimentary kind of day and night cycle. Nighttime, however, is when things get dangerous, as the SCP-3008-2 entities, which are known to the people inside as the staff, become extremely hostile after dark. Aggressive hordes of the staff swarm the settlements at night, repeating, "This door is now closed, please exit the building."
I mean, that would be pretty scary.
Able to repel these attacks with minimal casualties, but the constant war of attrition slowly wears down those inside. The bodies of the creatures also need to be removed from the area after each attack, as the presence of corpses or even parts of corpses has been known to heighten the ferocity of the next night's attack. During the day, the staff return to a docile and unresponsive state, though they'll still defend themselves violently if anyone dares to attack. Over the course of the
Interesting.
interviews with the 14 escapees, Foundation researchers were able to answer another of their key questions. How had so many people gone missing in the store for so long without being noticed? But
Exactly.
the answer they received only raised many more unsettling queries. According to the escapees, there were people inside the settlements that, despite being otherwise of entirely sound mind and standard intelligence, seemed to lack very common knowledge that even a child should know. For
Like
example,
what?
some of them weren't aware of the International Space Station orbiting the Earth, or stranger still, the existence of the Statue of Liberty.
Wait a second. So everybody knows what those things are. So either A, they're stupid, or B, they're not from like the normal universe that you and I know. Like they're from these like alternate universes where maybe there isn't an International Space Station, or maybe they were taken, hold on, maybe they were put inside of this IKEA before those things even existed. So maybe some of those people in there are like hundreds of years old. And maybe when you go inside this IKEA, you are now just like, you are basically invincible and you can never die. I don't know. I don't know which one it is. I don't know. Maybe it's alternate universes, or maybe it's pulling people from different periods in time. Like maybe it's pulling cavemen into this system and then they're just trapped there forever.
This led the researchers to a frightening conclusion. SCP-3008-1 may not only be a nexus point of multiple IKEA stores in our dimension, it could be connected to IKEAs in every dimension where IKEAs exist.
Wow.
While it only abducts a handful of people from each store over an extended period of time, it suddenly becomes clear how this SCP was able to trap so many people without detection over such a long period of time, which in turn led to an even more terrifying revelation.
Also,
The
why
SCP
does it want to
Foundation may
trap
not
these
have
people?
SCP-3008-1 as contained as they thought. It might even be tucked away in an IKEA store somewhere near you, just waiting for you to visit.
Okay, all right,
After
let's not go
there's
there.
always room for one more.
Nope. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I feel like we're going to be safe. The SCP Foundation, they found the IKEA, so we're good. You could still go to your IKEA and get some meatballs.